there's always aggression and faults to the way we feel and see ourselves. And it's true about aging, and it affects our body responses. And there's studies now that shows that people who view aging as a positive experience, it's an experience of growth, more wisdom, more purpose, and even more fun because now they can, right? They tend to live longer, have lower rate of disease, happier, and they look younger because the way they carry themselves is so much more important than what they put on their face in the moment.
Hi, Skin Friend. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Skin Reel. This week, I am talking all about longevity because, in my opinion, that's what really, really matters. I don't want to just live longer if I can't live a healthy life. That's why I brought on holistic coach and movement coach, Tania St. Laurent. She is an osteopathic doctor trained in Canada. She also is a certified lifestyle and wellness coach from Harvard Medical School and has over 20 years of experience as a movement specialist, where she combines science, mindfulness, and practical strategies to help individuals and organizations optimize their performance, their resilience, and well-being, which, hello, yes, that is totally what I want. If you are someone who wants to learn about longevity, not because you want to live more years, but because you want to live healthier for longer, you definitely want to check out this episode. Tania, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get to connect with you again after that amazing retreat we were on together a couple weeks ago. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you again.
I don't know if it's just me or it's the phase of life I'm in, but I am all about longevity. And maybe that's because I'm in my mid 40s now and I want to be as healthy as I can for as long as I can. But it's something that has definitely been top of mind for myself. And I also see it in my patients and my husband and our friends, this whole sort of push for longevity. And I know that this is something you spend a lot of time and energy on, but what exactly is longevity and longevity medicine?
Yes, I think you're right. And it's not necessarily just because we are in our 40s, it's that maybe we feel it a little bit more. The things we wanted to do, we were doing when we were in our 20s, doesn't feel the same than when we're in our 30s and our 40s and, so on. And I think a nuance that is really important to bring, and I think you and the community will agree, is that longevity goes so far behind just living long. We want to live well. We want to feel good. We want to thrive. We want that these extra years that we're looking for mean something and that they feel awesome. So that kind of race towards that longevity that we're seeing with a lot of biohacking and all the tricks. What can I do to feel like 20 again? Or what can I do to get more of these extraordinary years to come? It has a lot of ramification and it comes with different areas of life. I see a bit health and longevity. So I'm going to put them in the same category just to give a bit of a broader experience. But the longevity, it's how your health is, right? If you don't have health, longevity will feel different. And it's a three-legged stool. So we want to have some movement. We want to have proper nutrition/hydration, and we want to have a proper way of recuperating, and rebuilding our body. So this is kind of in the past couple of years that where I've been putting the focus is what do we need to do to support the body in these three different categories? Because in the end, you will be as healthy and you will thrive. And this is the marker of your longevity, as strong as the weakest of your three-legged on your stool.
That's a great analogy, right? Like you need all three of them because if you are really good at two of them, then that stool is going to be really wobbly, right? So it's important to have all of those. And I feel like something that is motivating for me is I see my parents getting older. I see my husband's parents getting older. A lot of my patients are older. And I see what it can be like when you're older to be frail, to not have your health. And I think it's so important now, especially as we're living longer and longer, that like you said, we make those years impactful. We have health span, not just lifespan. So I love that three-legged stool approach, that it's all of those. So I am trained in the US as a medical doctor, and you have a different sort of training, a Canadian based osteopathic doctor. And I think one of the things that Western medicine gets criticized for is that people say we just try to focus on curing diseases or writing prescriptions and curing something when the problem's already there. And for decades, for centuries, right, that really was the focus. But we didn't have the lifespans that we have now, but we also didn't have the chronic illnesses that we have now. So I think we just totally need to relook at how we think of health and medicine in general, because no longer are we trying to have clean water and food is abundant for most people, right? It's overly abundant. And most of the diseases that we have nowadays are from our lifestyle or a lack thereof of health, right? So I think it's so important that we focus on this now. And I love that doctors are sort of taking the charge with this as well, that it's not a one or the other, it all works together. So I love your message too. You even say it's an inside out job, right? Or it's an inside job. So can you elaborate on that?
I really like this idea, right? That a lot of the what we see in our life, in our body, and even on our body, what we're looking for outside of us. So we're looking for answers of how we can fix, in fact, what's going on inside. And so health, longevity, and so even the way we age all start within. Our biology, it's shaped by our thoughts, our emotions, our lifestyle, and our environment. And I'm pushing a little bit when I say thought and emotion, but I'll get there. And the skin is a perfect example. The skin is the largest organ of the human body. I mean, we already know that. And in terms of surface and weight, but it's not just about what we put on our skin, but how we nourish ourselves from the inside out.
Amen. You're talking my love language now. I say skincare is whole body care because people just think skincare is putting stuff on from the outside in. And really, it helps, sure. And that is a component, but it really is inside out. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. This is a conversation. This is great. And I love your excitement. I'm excited too. I'm holding back a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So the skin is a reflection of what is truly going on inside. And stress, poor gut health, digestion, lack of sleep, no sleep. And even our thoughts, again, when I say, but this is due to the stress response, will accelerate aging, inflammation, and in this case, even skin condition. And the population, we're getting sicker and sicker, and we're still looking for to find what's going on outside of us, but there's a lot, it comes from our responsibility. And when we work on an internal environment, reducing stress, balancing hormones, supporting digestion, and even shifting our mindset and the mindset in the stress response that we just talked about, we can create condition that will better our health, make us more radiant, and that would make us the skin look more youthful.
And you feel better, right? You feel better, your skin looks better. I say come to me for like the final 10%. I can help with the final 10%, but so much of it is internal and it's how you take care of your body and lifestyle. And unfortunately, I don't want to say the sooner you start, the better, right? Like with all of these things. And prevention is so key if we can do that. But I'd love to kind of go back to your three stools: the movement, nutrition, hydration. And then what was the third one?
The regeneration, how we regenerate our body, but also our mind and the state of mind.
Yeah, well, I know you're really into fitness. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about movement because we have such sedentary lives nowadays. A lot of people sitting in an office for 8 hours a day, barely getting up to walk around. So, and how do we incorporate movement and why is it important?
So I'm a strong believer of the importance of the connection mind body and how the way we move, our habits will influence our nervous system overall. And it also influences our state of mind. And as you mentioned, if you think about you're being seated for 7, 8 hours a day at a desk and then in the car or in the transportation, and then what do we do when we get home? Oh my God, we're so tired. And the first thing we do is we sit again and then we eat and then we Netflix and then we go to bed. So the body get a bit stuck in that cast. And we have so much energy, our heart beating, our lungs, moving, and we have so much of that inner energy, but it stay trapped and the body stays kind of locked. And it gives this feeling of anxiety, of uneasiness, of stress and fidgety. And it can be very different for different type of people, right? And that leads to an enhancement of certain mental health condition, but also certain physical condition. When we're stiff, we get stiffer. When we get tired, we get more tired. So it becomes that seed that you want to plant need to plant some seed of movement to be able to keep moving more. And the nervous system is constantly gathering information from the body and the environment. It shapes how we feel, think, and react. And when we move, breathe deeply, adjust our posture, we're sending signal to the brain that will influence the stress level, the mood, and just overall how the body will feel and behave in its environment. And I think there's a bit of like that go hard or go home in mentality that if I don't go to the gym 5 times a week, ideally at 5 a.m.,
For an hour or 90 minutes.
oh, at least then you're not doing it right. Then don't even bother. But that couldn't be further from the truth.
I admit that I get that way too. It's like, well, if I can't do an hour, don't do anything.
Don't do anything. We'll just start tomorrow. We'll just do it tomorrow. But that could be further from the truth. And in fact, it's the consistency. It's the little thing done over and over and over that leads to transformation, big changes, and evolution of whatever you're working on, either it's strength, mobility, flexibility, or just level of energy. There's so many routes, many ways that we can move our body that doesn't have to be in the gym. I'm not saying it's not, I love my whole family, we're gym rats. We love going to the gym and lift weights and, do these things. My husband is more a high endurance athlete, but I will say that a lot of the time we have these more simpler movement, going for a walk. It doesn't have to be again in the forest, in a specific mountain. It could be just around your neighborhood and getting that fresh air, that movement. It could be some stretches before bed for body regulation, for helping the body get in that quieter state, to do some gentle stretches before bed. That's the fountain of youth right there. You help your nervous system go down and then you go to sleep. You're going to sleep so good. And it's going to feel so right that the next day you kind of start with a little edge, you have a little something more because your body had this opportunity to recover even better. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a dance party in the kitchen while you're preparing breakfast and you just move around. It's movement because your body, this is one rule, that's something you will agree with, and your body will adapt to its demand. If you don't demand any movement, any range of motion, then if you don't use it, you lose it. And as our parents are aging, my clientele, patients, they're aging, that's the first thing we see as an inconvenience and things that they say, I have a hard time going up the stairs. I can't go down on the floor as easily, or if I go down, I can't come back up. Falling or traveling and not being able to put their hands over to put the suitcase in the overhead bin. And when you ask them, when did you lose it? Do you notice that you couldn't do it anymore? And the answer I hear all the time is, I don't know. I could feel that it was different, but I don't know when it stopped working for me. And the prevention is much easier to prevent and adjust than trying to repair, look back and, repair all the little missed pieces that we didn't see as the tightness, the weakness, the instability that we have developed over the years.
Yeah, it's a body in motion tends to stay in motion. And when you stop moving, it's that vicious cycle, right? Because then it starts to hurt and you're sore. So you don't move, but then that is really what you need. And I just think about my children. Kids are naturally, they want to move.
Play like a child.
Exactly. My children, they don't just walk somewhere, they skip. They're always moving. They dance, right? We lose that. And it makes me sad because my kids are now more, 10 and 11 and they sit all day at school and they don't get to move like they used to. I feel like we sort of drive that out of kids sooner than we should, but really we all need to have more of that childlike energy and ability to just move and dance and be free. And I also think just being in nature, at least for me, is really cathartic, even if it's just a walk in my neighborhood and more of a city urban walk, but I'm still seeing trees. I'm still outdoors, fresh air.
You're still changing the environment.
Exactly. I find that can be really helpful too. I feel like I hear a lot. I'm hearing more about people talking about the nervous system, and also things like adrenal fatigue, where they're talking about high levels of cortisol. And I just feel like in this day and age, we are so amped up. We are always on edge. We're so stressed. We're so busy. We have so much going on. We're multitasking all the time. I do feel it. I do feel like I'm on like hyper alert all the time for everything. My nervous system's like firing on 12 cylinders. What is a good way to help us regulate our nervous system and to slow down and to lower that cortisol response and stress response?
I think that's a great question. And I want to add a little something before that. People sometimes that are doubting a little bit, right? That stress is good and it helps me move, right? Stress, if I don't have stress, then I'm not accomplishing anything. You hear that sometimes?
And I'm kind of one of those people too. Like, I like a little competition. I sort of need a little bit of fire to get me going, but not all the time, right? Not 24/7.
Yes. And I think this is where we need to make that nuance, right? That stress is helpful sometimes in creativity, but sometimes it can also be the reason we're not creative anymore. And sometimes being on the timeline is helpful to get things done, but then we get paralysis because there's too much and we don't know where to go. So stress has pros and cons, and it's super important. Sympathetic versus parasympathetic response. We need that sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. But here, let's just call it in the stress response for now. It's still vital. We need it to catch something before it falls off a counter or avoiding a car crash or, whatever it is. It's so important. The problem is that eventually it overrides. And that becomes our only way how to being is reactive, reactive, reactive. And we want to learn how to balance things. So there's time for sympathetic. And even in the body, there is a lot of sympathetic reactions that are vital, increasing blood pressure, focus dilation in the eyes, even the skin when we get those little chills. I had it in the French frisson, goosebumps, these little frissons. This is nice. It tells you that something is happening, something is going on. So it's not a bad thing. But we need the balance between the two. And the way we perceive stress, the way we express it through our thoughts and emotion, our belief, it doesn't just exist in our heads. They create real physiological change in the body. If you think about something sad that happened, you might start tearing up. Even if it's not happening right now, you're thinking about it and you're reliving the moment. If you think about something funny and you want to tell a joke to your friend, you're going to start cracking up. I know I start laughing before I'm even done with it. This is what I do. But you have this reaction of your body that is your thoughts are already creating something in your body. And the fact that what we think will take a route either in the sympathetic or parasympathetic, then it will tell us also that chronic stress, negative thinking will increase cortisol, and that can lead to inflammation, weaken the immunity because a lot of our natural cell K, the natural killer, they don't work well with cortisol. And eventually there's premature aging because there's also damage on the DNA. But that chronic cortisol, that chronic, I need to do this, I need to do that, one more email, one more this, one more that. And then you open the TV and it's your least favorite person talking on the TV. You get angry. Then you're late somewhere and you drink a lot of coffee and you're dehydrated. Your chronic stress is so high that it becomes an IV drip, and that is exhausting. And we want to find ways to get towards that. What are the tools? And there's, again, different tools. We have to try what works for us. But in that whole spectrum, we have movement. I'm thinking about yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong. And if it's not your jam, lifting weights can be helpful as well with a proper recovery, because lifting weights is also very active. So we want to make sure that we're not just crushing it, and then going to work and crushing it again. We want to balance things out. So we want to make sure that we keep a nice cool down after we work out, which people do not do because they don't have time. But it's so important to rebalance things out. We can talk about breath work, different strategy. There's some breath. And there's a lot of studies on that now. Some breath that are helping for calming the system, giving clarity, a little bit like letting the dust fall or the dirt down so you can see a little clearer. There's some breath work that are very active. Think about the Wim Hof. right? So it gives energy. There's a lot of, it's pretty popular right now. So these are very active. And there's others that are really helping just in your system of quieting it without necessarily leading to a sleep or oversleep state, more like a quiet, like taking a moment to reground ourselves. So breathwork is another way. And all of that will be done with mindfulness. And mindfulness has different ways. Some people are expressing their mindfulness and their awareness through meditation, journaling. Some people will be taking notes. There's just so many ways that saying, oh, I can't do it, it's not for me, it becomes at this point a choice of not wanting to try different things.
Right. It's like, well, if you're happy with how your life is and how you feel, then don't do it. But if you feel like, I don't like this since I'm always sort of panicked and my heart's racing and I never have a moment free, then it's time to kind of re examine your life. I feel like for the first many decades of my life, it was go, go, go. I want to be a doctor. And I was on this path and then a dermatologist and then a practice. And then I started my family and now I got to build the practice. And finally, I'm now like at a point where I feel like I can take a breath and realize, okay, now what do I want for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, 20 years? How do I want to design my life? Because if I don't actually stop and think about it, I'm just going to be on this autopilot of busy, busy, busy. And that's not really the life I want to live. That's not really my dream life.
I love to ask myself every couple of years, right? So I'm going to turn 40 this year. So every 5 years, you have a little bit that moment of like, ooh, right? First of all, everybody reminds you, but second, the society's telling you also what's coming. So, but there's a question, what should I start now that in 5 years from now, I'm like, that is such a good thing that I started that, right? What can I do now that might seems not so, not that it's not important, but it's not necessarily difficult or it doesn't seem so prevalent. But in 5 years, when I'll be that 35, that 40, that 45, that 50, all coming from that prevention. My hips are a little tight. If you don't do anything in 5 years, they're not going to be less tight. They're going to be very difficult. And if you start having problems now, maybe in 5 years, you have trouble walking. For example, things like that in mobility and flexibility, because we were talking about movement a little bit earlier on. But what are the things that we need to do now that will assure that when we hit these different decades, we feel that we are not pushing through, but we are being pulled and being lifted. If you want to be super healthy at 80, you need to start building that in your 50s, in your 40s.
That's right. And I think people get discouraged, like, can't go to the gym every day. Like, I'm not a gym person, but I like classes. I like yoga. I like walking. And what I've learned is, okay, I don't necessarily have to go lift really crazy heavy weights. I don't know. Maybe you'll tell me I do need to. But the feedback I've gotten is as long as I'm doing resistance training, that's okay. So I think finding what you like. And again, I don't like to work out at 5 in the morning. It's not my jam. I'd rather journal and sort of be calm. That's sort of my calm time in the morning. And I can do gym another time. So you have to find what works for you. And also don't underestimate the power of making small little changes because over a year, over 5 years, over 10 years, those little things that you think don't make a difference make huge, huge strides. Like think about like a boat. If you just turn that boat a few degrees off course, it's going to be way off course down the road. So I think people underestimate that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I did want to talk about mindset a little bit. You had mentioned mindset, and that's something, again, I feel like I'm sometimes overly pragmatic. And I used to think mindset, it's woohoo. I tell my mind what to think. I don't need that kind of work. And what I've discovered is that it's so powerful. Like I just thought like I'm successful, I can do these things. And I think we don't realize the thoughts we tell ourselves and how negative they are so much of the time and how that really impacts us. And I see it in not just my patients, I myself as well, right? We say, oh, you look ugly. Oh my gosh, look at your chin, look at your neck, look at your eyes. You know, I feel like we're super critical on how we look, especially as women, and we start to see things change. And then I see people coming to me and they want to fix it. And there's plenty of things we can do. And I'm all for people doing things to make themselves feel better. But a lot of times it's also mindset work has to be there too, to not fixate on every little flaw because there are always going to be things we wish we could change or all that. But if we fixate so much, especially on how we look, when we know we are going to be changing as we age, I just find people are going to be really, really frustrated and discouraged.
You're absolutely right. The way we perceive, these are all little stressors, right? We know we're talking about that IV drip. It's another white hair. Oh, that wrinkle was there yesterday. Is it a sunspot? So there's always something, or just the lighting on the picture was not good.
Or my children will say, your skin is really mushy or
Oh, bless their heart. The kids are
so honest.
yeah, and maybe they shouldn't be so honest. But there's always aggression and faults to the way we feel and see ourselves. And it's true about aging and it affects our body responses. And there's studies now that shows that people who view aging as a positive experience, it's an experience of growth, more wisdom, more purpose, and even more fun because now they can, right? They tend to live longer, have lower rate of disease, happier, and they look younger because the way they carry themselves is so much more important than what they put on their face in the moment. They walk the talk and they don't feel old. And our mindset will influence how we act. And we will prioritize our self-care differently. Why the way we eat, the way we move, the way we recover. And this will be all impacted by the decision we made that morning, looking at ourselves, being like, hey, I got this today or just being happy for what is. You will walk around with happy, right? Versus trying to hide everything and trying to stop something that can be stopped. A flower blooms and is not worrying of what's going to happen after. It's just doing its thing. I like to see myself as a flower.
That's right. A beautiful bloom. Well, I have seen that, the data showing that. Yeah. I think if we reframe aging, because I'll say, well, what's the alternative to aging, right? Like, do we really want that? Because that is the alternative. So, not everything is going to be amazing about aging. Of course not, right? But how you frame it makes a huge difference. If you see it as all negative, then you're going to struggle with it more versus seeing it as a time of freedom, maybe, or confidence, right? I have so much more confidence than I did when I was in my 20s, right? So, yeah, I think the whole mindset is everything. It really is so key. And I see it all the time in my patients with skin issues too. And I think working on that, just like working on your body, is very important. Can we talk about the wellness space? Because I love the wellness space. I love longevity, biohacking, and all that. But at times, it does seem like there's a little bit of some snake oil going on. And maybe, how do people know what's good, what's real, what's not? Because a lot of things in the wellness space are not necessarily randomized, controlled, trialed, studied, and all this stuff. So, how do you know what's legit, what's not?
That is such a powerful question and so difficult because the snake oil is so attractive. It comes with promises that will fix everything. And why would I not try it? What's the worst thing that can happen? Right. And so I would start with remembering that wellness doesn't have to be extreme and doesn't have to be difficult. There's very little things that biohacking will help. I'm not saying there's nothing good about it. There is benefit, but at the root, are you eating properly? And when I say by eating properly, and especially in this nation, we're thinking don't eat too much. I am an amazing coach because I make all my people eat more, for real, but more of the good stuff. I make them chew because we don't chew our food.
Yeah, we inhale it while we're in the car.
Yes, and we're like, this is in, now you deal with it. I did my part. So, do we eat the right things and enough of it? I would say that we could always do a little better. And do we hydrate ourselves? Oftentimes we're like, oh no, and we chug like four glasses because we didn't drink all day. Do we move? We move when we can. Do we sleep? We kind of do. Is the quality optimal? This is where the difficulty is. We don't spend enough time in bed. And is this time quality? Do we have enough of time spent in the REM phase, in the deep phase, well balanced with the light sleep, with the efficiency of our sleep? All of that. There's so much work that we can do before going for the snake oil. Oh, I'm going to take that supplement. Okay, great, great. It's supplements are very helpful. I'm taking supplements. My kids are taking supplements sometimes, depending of the season. Fruits and vegetables are not always the same. So supplements are not a bad thing. But for a lot of people, they become the only thing instead of fixing. And when I say fixing again, it's not, oh, it's bad. It's more like, how can we make it better? And that becomes a tool. And in the community of biohacking is, oh, you need to take that supplement and you need to put this lotion at night for muscle recovery. And you take a bath here and you need to do the infrared sauna and you need to do this and you need to do that. I'm like, okay, but how much alcohol are you drinking every night? Well, yes, you go to bed with that infrared or the mask or whatever, but for how long are you staying in bed? Right? So, and are you on your phone until you fall asleep, watching things that are very stimulating? And even if they're funny, it's still your brain. It doesn't go to bed and it takes a long time before you actually settle in your sleeping body. So, all these tools and this biohacking, I would go back to the root and be asking the simple question: do you eat? Do you chew? Are you mindful when you eat? Are you in your car? Are you in a meeting? Or are you in front of your computer? Right? And I understand sometimes we have no choice and it's better to eat than not eat. But we have so many opportunity to improve in different areas of our lives that if adding one more thing become a motivation or it becomes something that is helpful, that's great. But we cannot just look for the trend. And wellness doesn't have to be extreme to be effective. It's not about chasing the next trick, the next shiny thing, and over supplementing ourselves. It is really to find what will have the biggest impact coming from consistency. How can we have foundation in our habits? And that comes with how you move, how you eat, how you sleep, how you breathe, and how you think every day. That's the basics. And when they're done and done well, it will always outperform the latest trend.
I feel like I am like, you could take that message and just substitute skin. And that's exactly how I feel about how to take care of your skin. It's not the trends, it's not the gimmicks, it's not the hype, it's consistency. It's simple, it's consistent, it's quality over quantity. And unfortunately, that's not like sexy and doesn't sell products, right? So that message gets kind of pushed down, just like with wellness. But yeah, it's like these are the things that really move the needle. It's not a quick fix. It's not something we can package into a bottle. It requires work on our part, right? Which is tricky, but the rewards are amazing when you do it.
Yeah, there was a CrossFit athlete, and I have a blank right now, so I'm so sorry. I don't remember the name, but who extremely performant. And he said, and I agree with this so much, if we could bottle sleep, it would be performance enhanced drug.
That's amazing. I used to think sleep was just a waste of time, and now I realize how critical it is. Well, Tanya, this has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. This is super inspirational to talk with you. Can you just leave the listeners with your 3 simple daily habits that people can do that will improve their skin, their energy, longevity, but without adding more stress to their routine, right? Like, sometimes I think I call it the hot girl hamster wheel of like beauty preservation, but I think there's something similar with wellness and longevity, right? We're not trying to create more stress, but what are some things people can do that are simple?
Yes. And first, I will use that expression from now on. So I would like to leave with one in each category in movement, nutrition, and regeneration. And these are guidelines and they can be modified and adapted to everybody's need and availability. When I hear somebody say, oh, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, that couldn't be more false, especially us. mothers, workers, having aging parents, having kids to take care of, having a business. We don't have the same 24 hours than somebody who's 20 years old or somebody who's, having a different life with us. We do have the same amount, but what we do with it cannot be compared. So everybody has to move in with this with grace and give themselves room for try and error and adapt. But the foundation is to have a little bit of movement, moving with intention. And it could be so simple, starting your morning with, I like natural movement. It could be a walk. If people have animal dogs, they can go for a quick walk in the morning. And when you do it, instead of already being on your text and seeing what the day, just take that moment for you and look at the trees and count how many trees are in your street for that morning. Be present. Be present with the moment. It could be staying in your bed and starting some mobility, just some stretches in your bed. It could be anything that will improve your circulation, your lymphatic drainage, the oxygen flow. It could be a couple of movement. And it's not everybody who would like to do that. I'm just giving an example. But a yoga sun salutation, coming up, folding, getting on the floor, coming back up. You do that 5 times in a row. It feels like you had an espresso. It wakes you up. You're like, wow, this is awesome. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but movement, and if you can go outside, it helps regulate your circadian cycle, your rhythm, and it helps your metabolism. So find a way to get some mindful movement, even if it's 2 minutes. If you can do more, awesome. But get some movement that you intentionally put in your day. Nourish and hydrate. Smarter. And that means that you want to fuel your body from the get go. Waking up in the morning, getting a glass of water. Get your coffee, but first get yourself a glass of water. And you can add some electrolytes in there. You can add a little pinch of good quality sea salt, but it will help with your hydration, your skin is elasticity. It gives you mental clarity. It gives a little backwash to your digestive system. And then you follow up that with, especially, I'm talking for everybody, but women, perimenopause, menopause, we need protein. And there's different sources of protein, but we want to have, a rich, nice, nourishing breakfast so you can start the day. And as the day goes, a lot of us don't have time for lunch, or we eat lunch so late. So when you start with something nourishing for yourself, it can help. It can be a smoothie. It could be something you cook, and it helps preventing the energy crashes, and it helps with collagen production. And the last one in the recovery, the regeneration, it's again has different coats, different variation of it. But our nervous system, our skin, our energy level will regenerate best when you're focused on stress management or being aware at least of your stress response. And simple breathing. We breathe between 22,000 to 25,000 a day. And if you exercise, it's even more. That's a lot of breathing. So can you pause and do 10 of them very slowly, very deeply, and notice how your shoulder drop, your jaw relax, your heart rates go from all over the place to, this is nice. And you can do that in the morning to start up your day. You can put that as a post-it on your desktop when you're done with a meeting to re-ground yourself. And you can do that before bed to help your body ease in that sleeping body. 10 breaths that you're mindful of. And it will be interesting to see how many times we kind of lose track because we go back in our thinking and we're like, oh, how many I was? Great, start again. And the same way we go to the gym and do repetition for our biceps, or we do, exercises. It's the repetition and the repetition that creates the training, that create that neuroplasticity, that create that evolution and improvement in the body. But that is also true in our minds. So little things like this that we can add that will generate better efficiency in our movement, in our nutrition, in our regeneration, the way we take care of ourselves, the way we rebuild our energy and our cells. Doesn't have to be complicated. It just have to be honest, that it talks and feels good to you, and consistent. So find something that you could say, I can do that. That's a 9 out of 10 every day. No problem. I can do this. And go with little things and do it well. And then go with something else and do it well. Instead of, I'm going to do 10 things and I'm going to do it all the time. We're not setting up ourselves for success. We're setting up ourselves for frustration. So start with a win. I'm going to drink a glass of water every morning. So simple. Okay, good. Do it. Do it again and again. And after 2 weeks, good. Now I'm going to drink a glass of water and I'm going to do a couple of stretches. Okay, great. Do it again and again, and then add on. And eventually that becomes part of what you do. It's a habit. The same way you brush your teeth every day, the same way we wake up and have a glass of water, it just become something we do.
And wear our sunscreen.
Yes, definitely. That is at the same level.
Such great tips. And it's just refreshing to hear like, it doesn't need to be a lot. It doesn't need to be crazy. It doesn't need to be expensive. And if anything, it's about kind of pulling away and slowing down and not adding more to our schedule. So I love that message. I know the audience is going to want to find you, follow you, see what you're up to and what you're doing. What's the best place for them to do that?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. So I do have an Instagram account, which is Tania underscore, my last name, Saint Laurent underscore as well. Tania is spelled with an I, the French way. So Tania. And I also have a website. I do some personal coaching, but I also do in business, in corporation. So I help individuals and team coming up with strategies. And there's so many ways that we can improve ourselves, but as a team, how we are dealing with deadlines, but also how we can make ourselves fit, right? And fit is kind of the mojo that I live by. When we hear fit, we're thinking, oh, fit is only physical fitness, but fit, it's a combination of focus, intentionality that will lead to transformation. So how can I be fit for the life I want to live? How can I make my team fit for the goal that we set up ourselves this year? How can I be fit for all the things that I want to do? And so this is a bit where I've been focusing in the past few years, working to help individual high achievers, athletes, but also just somebody who wants to do it. And same thing with companies. So it's a lot of fun. So they can find me also on my website, which is taniastl.com.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be focused, intentional, and transformative? I mean, sign me up. I'll include all of that because I know people are going to want to find that in the show notes. And this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was such a pleasure and I appreciate. And thank you also to the community. We are so powerful when we come at one and when we are interested to learn and put energy, and what you're doing is just incredible. So I'm extremely thankful and I think it's very inspiring. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we will see everyone next week.